All right. Okay, question number 2. The big controversy this week has to do with the revelation that the White House political team was behind the decision to send Susan Rice to the Sunday news shows to present an al-Qaeda attack on our diplomatic installation in Benghazi as the outgrowth of a protest in reaction to a YouTube video, rather than something we now know, and our national security and intelligence communities knew at the time, was far more systematic. Were you in Congress, what response would you favor as a way to dealing with those revelations, and what do they say about American politics and leadership?
You wonder why Congress has a single-digit approval rating. Why does Congress have a single-digit approval rating? You wonder why the president's approval rating is, I believe, in the 30s recently. It is because people are absolutely misleading the public. People are lying. They're spinning. They're simply not telling the truth. One of the reasons I want to get into this race, or I jumped in this race, is because I want to be real. I want to tell the truth. I want to recognize the fact that this country, again, it's not moving in the right direction. And we have new ideas and new leadership. We have proven effectiveness in ways to actually change the government's new direction, in a direction that's going to make it functional, it's going to make it solid over the long term. So you have one, just the bold-faced lying that occurred in this case. The second issue is that you have a lack of intelligence. You have a complete intelligence failure. Why is it that my communications are monitored and these folks were not? I don't understand it. That is a complete communications failure. The third issue is that the Diplomatic Security Service, Department of State that actually secures the ambassadors and other diplomats, asked for additional funding. They recognized that there was a security vulnerability. And as it was reported that Secretary Clinton at the time rejected those additional dollars. So you have to hold the intelligence community accountable, and you need to prioritize. Stop listening to me, listen to the bad guys. And the second thing you need to do is you need to hold Secretary Clinton accountable and the folks in the Department of State accountable who refused these security dollars that were requested by the security experts.
Well, the question here is, what would I do if I were in Congress? First, I would join with Senator Cruz in a select committee to get to the bottom of all this stuff. I mean, we know all the lies coming around. We haven't gotten any answers, and it's been a year and a half. They told us a year ago we were going to get, we were getting all the emails and all this. Now more emails are coming out. So what haven't we heard? We need to have accountability. And in Washington, in the Obama administration, there's no accountability, there's no consequences. The NSA, the IRS, all of them are doing all this stuff, and nobody's, there's no checks and balances on that.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
What's that?
I would like to ask a question like, we know about Benghazi, and we know how they have been deceiving us in Washington. What power do you think is behind all that allows that to continue with our congressmen?
The president's got to be the lead one.
I think the president is a messenger for whoever has the power that got him in there. That is who we need to be talking about. That is who we need to find out how to take over. Not Obama. It's the movement that's behind Obama. And I want to know who that is, and I want to know how we can take care of that. We'd all love to know. Well, if we don't find out, then we're spinning our wheels.
Well, that's the idea behind my select committee with Senator Cruz, actually, to get to the bottom of all this stuff. Thank you.
We've been clapping for everybody else here. All right. As I said earlier, I'm an old prosecutor. I had a little radio show that had been going at about the time this thing happened, and we called what was going on a more polite version of BS, in that we weren't, nobody was being fooled by what was going on. So the answer to what to do, in my view, as a prosecutor, is you appoint somebody of a Ken Starr type, investigate, indict, impeach, as it's required through the investigation. I don't want to just do it willy-nilly and not have any information, but I think the information is there and that we have to dig into it and let the chips fall where they may. Thank you. Like Senator Clater said, it's definitely something that you need to do an investigation into to get down to the very bottom of it. You've got several issues to keep in mind too, that it isn't just the president that would need to be taken care of. And by that, I mean investigated. You would also have to include the vice president who was aware of it, the secretary of state who was involved with it. And at some point or another, you have to also consider the attorney general who is appointed by the president or the leader of the Senate, because in order to be able to impeach, you're going to have one of them do an investigation, or you're going to have enough people behind you to actually be able to prosecute all of them. That is something that not only is this race important, the Senate race is going to be important, and as well the presidential race next time, because what's going to end up having to happen is to be able to get all of them held accountable, and they will not be able to be in office in order to be able to get that to happen. Investigation first. I like the idea of an independent group going at it. As a police officer, I did plenty of investigations. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it is something that has to happen because we have lost the faith of the American people with our government. We've lost the faith of the people around the world with what our government's done. So I do think we will have to hold those individuals accountable after we've conducted a true investigation and gotten it taken care of.
Well, I believe the first part of that question is very simple. It's that Congress should use all of its powers given by the Constitution for oversight and to hold folks accountable. It's very simple. The challenge we have, the challenge we have, definitely as Norm just laid out, a lot of the hurdles and roadblocks that are put into place of those powers being effectively used, especially by a lot of the president and Congress that trip them up. So to me, the second part of that question is most important, where we have to wonder what's wrong with our leadership in government and what does that say about them. And for me in particular, I'm concerned that this just shows how unscrupulous, or just how scrupulous they are to use any means necessary to push an agenda that they know the American people are fundamentally against, and then to use factors of race, factors of other division to block folks fundamentally disagreeing with that. That offends me, because as much as they want to prove a race card, it's an insult to everything our race, our culture has been through to get the achievements that we've accomplished, to only use that achievement to block fundamental disagreement that folks validly have a reason to disagree with somebody on. So to me, that's the main problem. What does that really say about our leadership in Congress or just in government is that the lengths they will go to use different factors to divide, deceive, distract, and just undermine the constitutional powers that are already in place to hold folks accountable and take it off the table. Thank you.
I think everyone in this room agrees that the inaction of the president is completely unacceptable. If you look at it, every time the president turns around, he's doing something or pushing some agenda that helps grow the government, that helps grow and add more regulations, add more government bureaucracies. And so I think one of the biggest problems, to answer your question as well, is that you have so many unelected people up in Washington that are controlling a lot of what goes on. The Congress has slowly over time moved away from the Constitution and moved into a setting where the Constitution, the Congress is not exercising its powers given by the Constitution. We allow the president now to have executive orders, and the Congress doesn't use its constitutional ability to say, hey, listen, we need to impeach this guy. Because you can impeach anybody that's elected based on the Constitution. And so, go back to your question. We got so far down that I forgot what the question was.
What are your favorites of way of dealing?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I got it. So, I think as one of my opponents here said, form a select committee. But also, too, you know what? President Obama made a big deal about, I'm going to use my pen. You remember that? Yep. He said, I'm going to use my pen. Well, you know what? Speaker Boehner has the ability to use his pen to create that select committee. Right. And if he doesn't do it, I think it's past time. He needs to do it. If he doesn't do it, I'm going to be one of the first members of Congress that comes up and says, hey, listen, we need new leadership in the House.
I do believe and agree with some of what's been said. We have an intimidation problem. Our current Republican leadership in Washington, they're intimidated by President Obama. They're intimidated by the current administration. We have to start pushing back. What would you think of a football team that only played defense? You know, I want to play offense myself. I got ground up on defense when I played football and knee injuries and all that. I never got to play on offense. And I want to throw the ball on first down. Pro style offense. Not this wimp of the world that we have in charge in Washington now. And you know, I'm not sure who that refers to. It's probably several individuals that, you know, could wear that title. So we just have to stop being intimidated. We have to start pushing back, and we have to be firm, and we have to look for a way to get at these people. And there are ways if you start looking, and you don't just sit back and wait for their next attack. So, for example, once a person has left office, impeachment is not an issue. Of course, impeachment by the House of Representatives, it's just an indictment. It's like you had a grand jury indict somebody for something, and the Senate is the jury that has to try. And so you have to get the conviction in the Senate. If you can't get that, then you're wasting your time. Except for public consumption, you're wasting your time to impeach someone in the House. It would be like a prosecutor, and I know Dan was a prosecutor, and I prosecuted court-martials in the Navy, and we wouldn't go to trial on something if we didn't think we could get a conviction from the jury. We knew the judge would rule with us up to a point that we had valid charges, but we had to convince that military jury, that court-martial, that the person needs to be put away. And you know, they stopped me from prosecuting court-martials in the military because every time I prosecuted one, I got a conviction and I got the maximum sentence. And apparently they had some informal guidelines about sentencing that I wasn't informed about. There were unspoken rules. And my boss called me in and he says, you can't just convict everybody and get the max on everybody. These results have got to be more in line with all the other results and all the averages. So then that's how I got working on international law, international agreements, international treaties, and getting insight into what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. But to get back to Benghazi real quickly, it was not only the fact of everything they didn't do and the fact that they lied about it afterwards, but the fact is we had two former Navy SEALs there that were winning the battle. These two men were winning the battle against all these impossible odds. And they were condemned to death by the rules of engagement that are made by the current administration. The rules of engagement say you cannot fire unless you're being fired on. And so on the roof across the street from the CIA annex, when it was under attack, we did have two former Navy SEALs on the roof fighting off everybody else. There was an individual standing on the roof across the street, and he was watching, and he was making hand signals back behind himself. And we couldn't take him out because he wasn't shooting at us. You know what he was doing? He was giving direction to the mortar team of the enemy that was behind cover and giving them the range findings until they could put the mortar shells right on top of our two heroes. And they died because we have the great wimp rules of engagement that we can't defend ourselves in battle. That I myself would not have been as loyal to the rules of engagement as our two heroes were.